Hello, everyone. Welcome back to Creative Cliche. This week's guest is David Muriithi, aka DJ-Lite, a very awesome person for the fact that he has a very good balance between business and art. He's a DJ. He's also an artist manager. He's had a very vast experience around artist management. Yes, most of the things he said themselves. But today we are streaming live from Tunisia. Again, share will be your host with David on show. David, welcome, guys. Let us know where you're watching from. Karibuni sana.
So, as you heard, guys, thank you for tuning in. We're live with DJ-Lite, Mzito mwenyewe. This guy is 50, but he can dance better than the average young man.
51.
He's 51, yeah, 51. Why am I still in? So, David, maybe the best thing people can do is tell us something about yourself that we don't already know from whatever we're saying, guys, out there.
You want something a little shocking?
Yeah, very shocking.
So you all know what breakdancing is, right? I hope.
Yeah.
Right?
Yes.
So let me tell you something shocking. When I was just about 15 years old, I became the Kenyan national breakdancing champion. How's that for a fact?
When? When was this?
1984. Your parents had not even met each other. They didn't even know about sex.
That could be true. That could be.
No, very true. Not could be. It's definitely very true.
Yeah. So now maybe to get into the hard stuff about you. You've been artist management for over 30 years now. And
32 years even.
Yeah, 32 years. What are some of the key insights that you've learned about Kenyans compared to Africa as a whole and the world in general? Because I'm sure you have so much that you've learned. And what are those things that stand out about the Kenyan creative sector for you?
Oh, okay. There's something different, and I've managed not just musicians but creatives generally. But if we talk about the creative scene generally, with a bit of emphasis on the music scene, one thing about Kenyans that makes them stand out. Kenyans tuko na shida nyingi, tuko na shida mob sana. But something that makes Kenyans stand out is their versatility. In fact, part of the reason we don't have a Kenyan sound in our music is because of how much we exercise the influences which make our creativity happen. So people always complain, oh, why is there no Kenyan sound like Bongo, like Naija, like Kwaito? You know what? Creativity is creativity. You can't command creativity. You can't sort of control it. Creativity comes from within. So yes. The reason we don't have a Kenyan sound is basically because we have so many influences. So what we have is, instead of one big genre of sound, we've got what you call subgenres, sub sounds, so to speak. We've got Kenyan genge, we've got Kenyan EDM, Kenyan trap, Kenyan Afrofusion, Kenyan, you name it, it's there. Rock, we've got Kenyan's rock, we've got Kenya, what else? R&B. Kenyan reggae, we've got, the list goes on and on. Kenyan traditional, Kenyan gospel, Kenyan, we don't know what that sound is, but it sounds good. So sometimes you've got to let creativity find its way. And again, it's up to the artist who's creating the sound to understand the market they're operating within. And that also comes with our creativity. It comes in our architecture, in our fashion. It shows up in our dance. It shows up in our films. It shows up in a lot of ways. So that's my take on the Kenyan creative, and yeah. I hope that made sense.
It does. But initially, before you became a creative, or before you discovered your creative side, you are a banker. And I want to know how the finance industry has influenced your creative journey, maybe because most creatives don't know really how to manage money, because we are so deep into the creativity, into the art, that we forget how to manage our money. So how do you balance the two?
So I'll make two corrections from what you just said. One, I was born creative. We are all born creative. So I was born creative and actually discovered my creativity. I think by the time I was like a few months old, because by then I was making creative noises. I'm sure they might have thought they were children's noises, but they were creative noises. And by the time I was 4, I was already dancing. I was quite a good dancer. I was dancing to Michael Jackson at the time. They were called the Jackson 5. This is in the 70s. And there's a picture of me dancing to Michael Jackson somewhere. I wish I could find it and share it with you, but it's somewhere. Anyway, so the point is, I think I always knew I was creative. I might not have given it the name creative, but I always expressed myself through music, through dance, through acting, through poetry, through public speaking, so it was always there. But I think it found its voice. It's especially on a commercial point of view, it really found its voice when I was in university. I was in the University of Manchester in the late 80s, and Manchester at the time was the center of creativity in Europe. It was a really good time to be there. I was literally at the first, I was at the right place at the right time. So sometimes it's also luck in terms of timing of things happening. And that's when I started managing artists, DJing, doing events. That's when I started all that creative expression from a monetization point of view. But before that, I was still doing that, but not making money. It was still a hobby. That's when it stopped being a hobby and started becoming a business. At the same time, I was doing a degree in accounting and finance, an economics degree. Actually, the second correction is I became an auditor, not a banker. Although my specialization actually was in banking and manufacturing. But I was an auditor with a company called Ernst & Young. I became what is known as a chartered accountant. Here we know it as a CPA, although it's a bit more advanced than that, but the closest to it is being a CPA. And how being an auditor or a finance person helped me is when I did leave my finance career and went back into my entertainment career. When I came back home, I lived in the UK for quite a number of years, about 11, 12 years. When I came back home finally, I did continue working in finance, but the advantage is I could also side hustle kiasi. When Ulaya, you can't side hustle easily, maze. That maisha is tough. But when you come here, everyone, there's no Kenyan who's employed who doesn't have a side hustle. Kweli ya uongo. So, ask your folks, by the way. Kila mtu ako na side hustle. So, I started dabbling again in my music, in events, and that's when I met up. We'd lost touch, but I met up with a famous producer known as Ted Josiah. Some of you know him. And this was in 97. And then we started collaborating on projects. So he would produce artists, and I would nurture the careers of those artists. I mean, we nurtured together, but I'd end up being the manager of those artists. Then we used to do events together. So we started with an artist called Hardstone. He had a famous song called Ohiki in the late 90s. Next up was Kalamashaka. There was Nikki, who is Sheila Mwanyiga. There's a whole lot of people. Atemi, Gidi Gidi Majimaji, Waire, and Nazizi separately before they were part of Necessary Noise and together as Necessary Noise. Susanna Wio were the ones who discovered Nameless. Mega Rider was us. Kisumu 100 was us. Tingbadi Malo and Wanbogabol were all our products, which we're very proud of, including, a host of others. But, I think we had a huge hand in sort of starting a really thriving Kenyan urban sound. This was before Gopa DJs, before Caliph. I think the people who were there before us was Zanaziki, Susan Gashukia and her team. But we really took it, I think, to the next level. And every generation, every team sort of takes it. Even Ogopa took it to another level, and so on and so forth. And here we are today with likes of Sauti Soul being internationally recognized, with the groups like Elani, people like Calligraph, Octopizo, people, whole lot of groups, Blinky Bill, Modoni Drama Queen, and all these are getting international notoriety. I'm sure I got that word wrong. Basically, they're being well known internationally. I'm from Nyeri, so saying notoriety is a shida. Anyway, you get the point. Yeah.
Now, it's good that you mentioned all these creative guys, Tina, Yashinsky, Nameless, South Soul. Now, having been part of their journey, having guided them to where they are, there are those qualities, characteristics that creatives need to have, other than just the talent to make it. What would you say as some of these characteristics, and how do they nurture them?
I'll tell you one of the most important characteristics an artist, I think, or a creative needs to have is actually passion. That's like the first thing you have to have is passion. You have to be passionate about what you're doing, and that really summarizes life generally. I mean, if you want to be a doctor, if you want to be a teacher, whatever you want to be, you want to be a policeman, you have to be passionate about what you're doing, or you find it very hard then to wake up in the morning and do it. Being a creative is no different, but being a creative needs that extra passion. And why? Because the truth of the matter is, it's a struggle being a creative in Kenya. There's no doubt about it. It's a struggle. Making money is a hustle. Corona has even shown us. So it's a tough industry to be in. So if you give up easily, if you don't have passion for it, and you give up, you can give up very easily, and take up full-time farming. By the way, part-time farming is always encouraged, even for creatives. But it's always important, that side hustle. Wacha nikwambie. And I'm sure some of you can relate to that. Ausio. So the point about it is, if you don't have the passion for it, you won't push yourself. You won't search for excellence, which is the next thing you've got to look for in a creative, is excellence. So I usually get asked, what do you look for in talent? Like, how do you spot talent? And I know one of my skills is spotting talent. So how do you spot talent is checking out how much passion they have, whether these people, whoever you're looking at, the creative, has that zest, that urge for excellence. And what do I mean by excellence? It means you rehearse regularly. It means you're constantly researching your field, whatever field you're in, whether you're a musician, whether you're whatever, producer, whatever. But constantly networking, that's a very important characteristic, to network within your industry and within, if you're going to be making this as a business, not as a hobby, okay? The other thing that's very, very important, and I want all creatives to listen very, very, very carefully. The thing that defines or separates a successful creative from a not so successful creative is discipline. Please put that in capitals. It's discipline. If you are not disciplined, you will not succeed. Take that to the bank. I have interacted with some of the top artists in this world, and I can tell you one thing they all have in common. Their talent might be varied and all that, but one thing those guys have is discipline. If they say they're coming for an interview at 9, they're there at 8:50 or 8:55. After you do an interview, and Caroline Mitoko once talked about this, I think when Dibanj came on her show, when she was on her morning show at Kiss FM, and she talked about how he came on time, and when he left, he sent her an email thanking her for that interview. Now, how many of you who've been interviewed, whether it's on radio, whether it's in the newspaper, or whatever, have sent a thank you note? Like, you take your time to write a thank you to the person who interviewed you, or who took time to just, whatever, expose you in any way, expose your talent to the world. Take time to just thank them, have that gratitude, and keep time. Ukiambiwa saa 10, be there 10 minutes before, not at 4 or 4:01, and then saying, at least I'm on time. No. Make time. Okay? Keep time, be disciplined. You will go very, very far.
I hear you. And there's something that you mentioned that really struck a lot about networking. The fact that you're talking about constantly networking. As a creative, you need to constantly network. And you're one of the most connected people in this country. So how do you build your network? Because I remember when I was watching an interview, someone saying when it comes to networking, it's not just about networking, it's how people know you and it's how you know people and how you know. Would you get this thing a little bit more now that it has been there?
So how you know people and how people know you is networking. Yes. How did you get hold of me in the first place?
I watched the interview with what's her name? Edith Man, and I was like, hey, you are dropping bombshells upon bombshells at points, and like, came to your inbox and I called you, I begged you. And like,
Sorry, I can't hear you too clearly. Just say that again.
oh,
I didn't hear you too.
sorry. I was
Yeah.
saying,
Yeah.
Edith Kimani, when you went for Edith Kimani's show, and then I
Right.
saw you there. I like the points that you are sharing with other creatives, and I say, why don't we expose you now to other creatives too, and stuff like that. Myself as well, I can learn something from you extra that maybe due to time constraints we're not able to cover with it. So I inboxed you, same numbers, and now we are here.
So here we are. Somebody I didn't know, and here we are. A couple of weeks later. That is networking. How do I know you? How do you know me? First, so the thing about networking is this: how do you know the other person? It might be somebody you don't know at all. So somebody you can ask. Let's say you're a musician and you want to meet. Name someone you'd like to meet. I don't know, Sauti Sol. Okay, let's just say. You want to meet Sauti Sol, you're an upcoming musician, you're like, wow. How will I ever meet those people? So there are many ways to skin a cat. And Corona has shown us that actually the internet is one of the easiest ways to actually start networking. So the first thing, and you alluded to it, and that's why I asked you the question, is research the person you'd like to meet. First, find out as much as you can, because when you do, you look for something to connect you to them. You look for something that of similarity, so to speak. And that's one way of getting into somebody's space, okay? But it has to come from a place of integrity and authenticity. It has to be real. It's not just, you're not coming there to be a fan. You know what I mean? That's not networking. That's just being a fan. It's a big difference. It's coming in from a place of integrity, a place of authenticity. And let me tell you, when you approach the person, whether online or when you meet them, and you say it with authenticity, it stands out. The reason I responded to you is because of your approach. You're a good networker. You said it, you are to the point, you explained why you wanted to meet me, why you wanted me on the show, and it resonated with me because you already done your research, you see? And you knew this thing, he's passionate about this. So that's the thing, look for what that person is passionate about and use that as a way to enter a conversation. So that's one way of networking. And that's one way of how do you know them? So through research, through asking even people, you might not know them, but you might know a friend who knows them. That's the other person. You can find out, anecdotes, things you might not even see online. You might find something unique. Just like how you asked me, what is something viewers might not know from your online profile? And I told you about my breakdancing, which now I won't be able to live down. But anyway, it's out there. So that's another way. The other way to do that is to go to events or spaces where those people are. So for example, concerts, exhibitions, meetings, online or offline meetings. If you find out Sauti Sol is on a webinar next week, join it, ask them questions, interrogate them, chokoza them so they remember you and say, hey, how can we, can you give us your email, want to contact, that kind of thing. But more times than not, you find if you approach somebody who you don't know, but it comes from a place of honesty and integrity and intention, good intention, more times than not, by the way, it doesn't matter who it is, whether it's Jeff Koinange, Caroline Mutoko, usually, not always, but usually, they will actually respond to you. Yeah. So how do they know you is the other way. They will know you from now the impression you give them when you now meet them. That is how they will know you. So you've always got to make sure you leave a memorable effect on them. Whatever it is, whether you have 30 seconds, is something we call an elevator pitch, which means if you're in a lift at Nyayo House on the 9th floor and you're going down and it takes 30 seconds to come down, and the person you always wanted to meet is in that lift with you, and there's only two of you, what would you say in 30 seconds? We call that an elevator pitch. And as a creative or as a business person, not just a creative, but as a creative entrepreneur, you should always have that 30-second, 20-second creative pitch to say, this is who I am, this is what I do, and this is what I want, and can I have your contact in those 30 seconds? So something you should practice and always have. It's like a calling card, but a verbal calling card saying, giving all the, summarized details about you. So that is how that person will remember you, by the first impression. And the other thing is, again, back to integrity. If you live up, then, because they might also research you, if you live up to that image that you left them, then they might get a little more curious about you. So that's how that whole networking thing. And the last thing I want to add to that, because this is very important, and I'm glad you asked that question. The issue around networking is a bit like what I said earlier about nurturing a network. You don't just network for the sake of, once you're in that network, you don't network now for the sake of, you only contact someone when there's biashara opportunities. No, sometimes you just check in on them during Corona. Hey, how are you guys doing? Are you well? Just checking in on you. People also remember you because of that. So that when the time comes when you really need them for something biashara-wise, they'll be more accustomed to you, having you in their space. Something in marketers called share of mind. They will remember you a lot easier. If you're that person who's always commenting on their, on their YouTube channel or whatever, you're constantly commenting. Have you heard how radio show hosts, sometimes there's some people, because they call in every single day or every week, they know them. They've never met them, but they know them by voice. It's you, Otieno, it's you. Again, Sasa Mambo. And they're sounding so familiar, but they've never met. It's just that Otieno was constantly badgering until those guys couldn't ignore Otieno. He was like a super fan or a super mchokozi. But sometimes that's what you need to get you in that door. So you do what you need to do, but when you get in, don't waste up the opportunity.
Okay, interesting. Now, speaking about business tips, fine. Now I know David Muriithi. I have David Muriithi's number. I have one of the most sought after DJs in Kenya number. Now, how do I then start, working my network to grant me a seat at the table as a creative?
Now, it depends what the seat at the table looks like. Depends what you want, from a person. So I think, back to what I said, I think you have to be very clear about what you want when you're meeting someone. That's the first thing. The other thing you have to have is a bit of tenacity. What do I mean by that? Is not letting go easily. So even if you're rejected the first time, don't give up that easily. If you're the kind of person who gives up after the first no, then you won't get very far in this business. Let me just warn you now. You knock on a door, you knock until it opens. There's so many times I had no when I was starting up in this industry. No. And I can tell you so many instances of when I didn't give up and the door eventually opened. Trust me on that one. Like, never give up that easily. Okay? And usually what no means is that usually it means you are just not prepared for that opportunity. So you've got to go back and think, what could I do better? How can I improve on that? What can I say better? What can I do better? How can I prepare better for the next time I meet either that person or a similar person? Because again, back to the networking thing, how that person knows you is what will determine whether you can get that seat at the table. What impression did you make on them? And is there your request? Is it something they could oblige to? Okay, because they might like what you've asked, but they don't have time to, or they don't have the resources to grant you your wishes. So in that scenario, what you do, I might have gone off topic, but in that scenario, what you do is say, okay, if you can't, can you recommend somebody who can? Again, that's part of not accepting a no. You understand? For an answer. And again, that person will remember you. Even if they pass you on to somebody else, they'll remember you, trust me. So how do you do that? Just be authentic. Be genuine, be authentic, be bold. Msiogope. People are people. We all cut ourselves, we all bleed the same blood. Even the Queen of England, believe it or not, it's not blue blood. It's actually red, probably even redder. There's not much sun. So it's never fear. People are just people. People are in position sometimes. But a position does not make a person. Yeah.
True. A position does not make a person. Now, Mushira has an interesting question where he's asking, you have mentored a lot of people.
Yes.
Did you yourself get mentored?
Yes. In fact, through my life, I've had, I would say, 5 main mentors. 2 have passed away. One of them was an amazing man called Hugh Masekela. He is or was one of the top, in fact, I'd probably say the top, one of the top African artists ever. And definitely one of the top Afro jazz artists in easily the top Afro jazz artist in Africa. Although he hated that term Afro jazz, he always said, "I'm an African." So he was my cultural mentor. He was a very close friend of mine. He passed away 2 years ago in South Africa. I have a mentor in England whose foundation I sit on, the Rumi Foundation. You can look that up. And he's been mentoring me since I was 17 on leadership, on business. He's one of the smartest and most networked men in the world that I actually have the luck to know. And then I have a cousin of mine who's actually one of my, I would call him my career mentor. The guy, when I'm making either big career decisions or big, even business decisions, he's a cousin called Patrick. He's again another genius of a man when it comes to ideas and formulation of business. He's a very successful businessman. He's one of my mentors. So yes, I do have mentors, both locally, internationally. And one of my greatest mentors was my father, my late father. Mentored me from a very young age. Actually, a lot of decisions I made, and he mentored me very cleverly, let me tell you. He never pushed me to a certain direction, but he made very subtle suggestions. And somehow I veered that way, you know? Becoming even an accountant was a suggestion he made. He didn't force me. He said, no, you do what you want, but you know, you can do. And I ended up just somehow, yet I was very creative and I was being pulled this way. I said, let me just try this thing out. And at the end of the day, it's actually worked out really well. My finance background is what has helped me run creative businesses successfully. Because as I said earlier, you're born creative. No one can take that away from you.
Yeah.
But if you can nurture that creativity and nurture the business side of that creativity, and that side needs nurturing. You need to learn business, the art of business around creativity. That is something you can learn. Creativity, you can also improve your skill, but you can't learn the creative. I don't know how to put it. You're either born with that passion for that creativity or not. You know what I mean? If you're going to be a photographer, you're going to be a photographer. Like there'll be some influence you might see, you know, even after you're born, but you'll that ability to have become the photographer was already inherent when you were born. Now the influences will now direct you towards showing where your innate creativity, your internal creativity is. So you'll find influences help you shape it. And you've got to, I think as a young person, and for those of you who will become parents or already parents or will become parents, just remember to understand your children and nurture them and let them try many, 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 many different things when they are young. Don't worry if they give up after 3 months, after 2 years, after, you know, they want to do this one day. Don't let them try them all, because when they reach the teenagehood, and some of you remember this when you're teenagers, you slowly started now getting a direction. And it takes a while, but it helps if you're really exposed to many things and then you find the thing you're passionate about. So I've just realized I don't think I even answered your question. What is the question again?
I'm also lost. We are talking about how is it about the journey to your mentors? Who mentored you? Yes, we're talking about who mentored you.
So yes, I was talking about how my father influenced my my decision and how it actually helped me then, you know, learn the business side of creativity. And that's what actually has helped me become successful. So I think for those who want to make a business out of creativity, start getting to learn some basic management principles, some basic business principles around your creativity. It helps you, because here's the deal, guys. We have to make money out of this thing if we're going to be able to reproduce it over and over again. Unless it's a hobby. If it's a hobby, imagine just do it when you feel like. It's okay also. That's another thing creatives have to be told. It's okay for creativity to be a hobby. You don't have to make money out of it. But if you do want to make money out of it, then you need some extra skill sets. And that's why I run, for the last 15 years, I've been running Creative Enterprise Center, because we set up training all across Africa. I've trained in about 6-7 countries around Africa. helping creatives learn some basic business skills. Again, that came from my finance background and my business background, and helping them enhance their management of their creativity. Now, what do I mean by all those business skills? I don't mean you become an auditor to become, but what it means is you understand the basics of things like cash flow management, like how do you manage money, you know? And do you need an accountant now to handle your money? When do you need a lawyer? Why do you need a lawyer? So you start understanding those small little things. Why do you need to pay taxes? What are those? Why should I pay taxes? I suffer. I shouldn't pay taxes. Then you realize actually you might just need to pay taxes. You know, small, just because knowledge is, what is knowledge? Knowledge is power. Absolutely. And ignorance is no defense. So that's what we do. In fact, there will be some, I'd like you to know, probably towards the end of this month, if you follow me on my Instagram at David Muriithi, that name right there, Muriithi. Don't go looking for DJ-Lite. Look for at David Muriithi. Look for a handsome picture. You'll know it's me. Thank you. And there might be some training we're doing for a limited number. So we'll be taking out a 3-day morning session online training in conjunction. I don't want to let the cat out of the bag, but in conjunction with a partner. And we're in the process of organizing it now. So we might just, if you're interested in it, just keep locked on my IG. And the minute you see it, jump in, because it's only going to be for about 18 people only. But there'll be more of those. Don't worry. Just keep it locked.
Okay, super. Now, when it comes to money, you are one person who's earned a lot from the brand. And I remember when in your show, with the show with Eddie, you were talking about how creatives nowadays earn from their skill rather than earning from their brand. Would you like to demystify why creatives should learn from the brand rather than the skill?
So, just to reiterate something I talked about, a few weeks ago on Edith's show, and what I think, just to explain to everyone what you've alluded to is, so there's a comment I made about earning from your brand and not your skill. So why did I say that? Because a lot of times when, let's say you're a musician and you're fairly good musician, you're in demand, but half the time, what tends to happen, not half the time, most of the time, what tends to happen, you appear at the end of the process. So you're told by a sponsor, we have a show. We want you on the show. We want to put you on the poster, and we're going to pay you 100,000 shillings. We're sending you a contract, sign here, and you're excited. You're like, wow, 100K, yay. You sign, you go, you do your show, you take some pictures, selfies, nini. The client is happy, they've gotten their likes on their product, and you go home. And that's the end of your interaction with both the fans who you met there and with the sponsor. Okay?
Yes.
That is when you are monetizing your talent. Monetizing your brand means you understand your brand value. You understand that, hey, I've got 30,000 followers, I've got 60,000 followers, I've got 200,000 followers. That means something. That stands for something. So if you're going to include me in a show, I'd like to be involved in the design of that show. So what does that mean? You assert yourself to get involved in the creative processes that involve you. So it's not just about sponsorship. It's about, even when you signed up to a record label, the contract you sign, you should try and put in as much what they call creative control. Now, a lot of artists only find this after their second, third album, even internationally. It's a big issue when you're signed up to a major label. But you should fight for creative control so that the end product is designed to suit you. And that's when you're pushing your brand. So you need to sit at the table when the initial decisions are being made, so that you're able to say things like, if I'm coming to do a show for you, I also want a chance to meet some super fans. I also want you to create, I want some radio interviews beforehand. This is what I do. I'll say I want some radio interviews beforehand. I want you guys to push for a newspaper article, because those big brands can do that. You see, they have the power. So you're using it also to advance your own objectives. Okay. And you say, I want my own VIP backstage, whatever. And I want 10 people to win I want a competition we're going to put on radio. I want 10 people to win my latest album, and I want to meet them backstage and sign it, and my super fans. So you see what I mean? By that same function, which you could have just come, performed, and left, you're getting a lot more equity out of it, a lot more value out of it. And that only happens if you recognize that you have more value and you insist on sitting at the table. And that only happens when you understand your brand, when you start monetizing your brand, when they actually realize that actually this brand is huge and we need to listen to it a lot more. That's what I meant. And I hope that has made some sense. I hope you've gotten something out of that, viewers.
Yeah, it makes some sense. Now, let's keep around the same topic and talk about now, as a creative, my business is growing. Let's say now I'm almost at the level of DJ-Lite. It's time to go to another level. How do I then, as a creative, step away from the business and let other people run it while I focus on the creative topic?
I feel like you've just answered the question yourself. That's actually it. You need to step away from the business and let other people run aspects of your business so that you're free to develop your business. So how most people, and I think the best example I can give right now in Kenya is Sauti Sol. And I know I've helped nurture and also and in their earlier days helped mentor them as well. And I've seen them grow. How do they do it? How have Sauti Sol become successful? It's not just that they've got good songs, because they do have good songs, but how did they even get those good songs? That's another question. But how did they get to where they are? What they realized at some point is Sauti Sol is a business. Sauti Sol is a business. It's not just a group. Okay, get this. So they set up Sauti Sol Entertainment, and they even went a step further to start nurturing other talent. How do you nurture other talent if you're busy running your own career? The only way you can do that is if you let go. Let go of processes that are not necessary for you to hold on to. Let go of accounting. Let go of management. Let go of styling. Let go of publicity. Okay? You can't be a superstar and you're uko there every day spending 5 hours on Instagram. Yes, you can go on once in a while, answer, but you can't. You will not grow. Let me tell you, you will not grow. And also, I think it comes from understanding yourself. What aspects of your business can you control and you're good at doing? Some of the things you might be just naturally good at doing, so it doesn't take much effort. But what are the aspects that you struggle a little? Those aspects, start letting them go early. As your career is this is not for just anyone starting off. Usually it's for people who are on the takeoff stage of their career. Because you need, for example, a manager, or I should say somebody to speak on your behalf. It could be a business agent. It doesn't have to be a manager, but it's somebody who, whenever there's a gig or something, you say, okay, speak to my agent, Kubaliana, I'm good. So that, why is that important? Because artists find it very hard to market themselves. And if you're artists out there and you're listening, how many of you know about that struggle? Trying to sell yourself, let's say to somebody, let's say a promoter, or to just whatever, trying to sell your services or your skills. Isn't it a bit difficult? When you ask how much, the struggle, and you're feeling, how do I value myself? That's really the big struggle. And what helps is if you get somebody else to come and value you, so to speak. I mean, of course, you have to value yourself. You have to understand, okay, I'm prepared to do this and that and the other. But when you get a second eye to come in and help understand you, and somebody who's more versed in the industry, who understands value also, actually, more times than not, they'll value you even higher, because they also have to make a cut, remember? So it's in their interest that you make money so they can make money. So you find your value starts going up. Sauti Sol, what do? They got a team of 5-6 people fully employed up to today who handle all aspects, of their business. So you won't call Bien for a gig, even if you're his neighbor, even if you're his cousin. You won't call Bien for a gig. Bien you'll call because you want to go have a nyama choma with him. But you wouldn't call him to book a gig. He'll say, speak to my manager. Okay? And then what they realize is that actually we've gotten to a point where we can just focus on creating music, and it gives us a little bit of extra spare time. What can we do? Let's create a legacy. Let's create something great. So they have both a foundation, an education foundation, the Soma initiative, where they go helping different aspects of education around the country. And then they also have the Soul Generation, which they're nurturing the next in quotes, Sauti Solas, so to speak, like the next generation of super artists, which I tell you can only do when you're at a certain level. Okay, you can only do that at a certain level. I've seen King Kaka doing the same thing. I've seen Octo doing the same thing. I've seen Modoni Drama Queen doing the same, and so on and so forth. These are artists who've reached a certain level and realized there's more to life than just making money for yourself. So you want to create and it's not for everyone. Don't get me wrong, everyone. Don't get me wrong, Ati. Everyone has to nurture someone. No. Not everyone will nurture everyone else or somebody else. No. It's your own passion, your own conviction. It has to be real. It has to be authentic. I'll keep on using that word, authentic. You don't do it for show. Those are not things you do for show, for Instagram likes or Facebook likes. No. These are things you do because it's something that is within you and you feel very strongly about. So that is how I think you can literally leapfrog your career by letting go of some aspects, focusing on the ones you're good at, which is like creating, and let other people handle it.
Now, I think we even jumped the gun. How before we should have asked that question, maybe we should have asked, as a creative, how do you value yourself? Yeah? Before other people value you, how then do you value yourself? What are the parameters that you look out to say, this is how much I'm worth and this is how little I'm willing to accept?
So let me tell you, this is a question that a lot of artists, a lot of creatives struggle with, not just locally, regionally, continentally, but even internationally. And the truth of the matter, if I'm to give you the truth of the matter, is this comes through a bit of hit and miss, trial and error at the beginning. Okay? What do I mean by that? Because you start off, and anyone who's an established artist will tell you they can remember the first time they were ever paid. The first time you get paid for something, more times than not, you didn't expect it. It came as a surprise. Okay? You're singing at a friend's, let's use singers. You're singing at a friend's wedding. You've been asked to sing because they know you're the family singer. You go, you sing, and then that uncle says, hey, and yeah, ulimba. Here's 2K. Go buy something nice. Huh? And if your artists, if any artists are out there or creatives who've ever gone through, who can remember the first time they were paid, it could be a sock, it could be 1,000, it could be 500, it doesn't matter. Just think back to the first day, the first time you were actually paid for your talent. Let me tell you, most artists or creatives do never forget that moment. Never. Why? Because it's the day you start valuing yourself. Before that, it was just like a fun thing you do. You're good at it. You're the best singer in school, so you use it to funkies and whatnot, And then you get paid. Then you realize, you mean this thing has value? And that's where the curiosity about becoming a creative entrepreneur starts. And then you progress. Then it happens again. This time someone pays you 4K. And now you start getting curious. You're like, wait, this other guy paid me 4K. The other guy paid me 2K. So Kumbe, I should maybe ask for 4K before. They start wondering, what am I really worth? And that's when the inquiry starts. And you start testing it out. Then someone calls you for a gig. You see, you're building a reputation. You're building a brand, Pole Pole. Your name is getting out there. Then someone asks you for slightly now more formal show. Hey, by the way, I liked what you did at that function. Can you come? We have a fun day activity for this bank. Can you come and sing for 2 songs? How much will you charge? Of course, the shock first. What do I? And every artist has gone through that. How much? And then what tends to happen, you always charge too low. Always, 100%. Like, there's no artist who ever charges higher. Always too low because you're so scared of losing the gig. You nini so low, you give them a quote and you wonder why they've approved it so quickly. It's, dude, you just undervalued yourself. But you'll only find that out again through trial and error. You'll go do that gig. You're talking to the other artists. Hey, well, you also paid the 10K. Then they're looking at you. 10K, ulipo 10K. Si tulipwa Terafini, they're like, damn. And then slowly, and why am I saying that? Because then the other thing you have to check is the market. You have to check what is the market paying for such a talent. Who is in my same league? Okay, you can't go as an upcoming artist and compare yourself to Nyashinsky immediately. You can't say, yeah, we're going to earn the same thing. No. You've got to work for it to get that brand recognition. So you say, who else is considered an upcoming talent or who's been in the industry maybe 2-3 years? How much are they being paid? You start researching. Ask your fellow creatives, how much are you guys paid? After you ask many people, you start getting an idea of the market. Then you start testing it. Again, with promoters, start saying, okay, me, I want 25K. If you see them accepting quickly, you can maybe still push it a bit. But if you see them now haggling, you start finding out maybe 20K is the place I needed to start off with. And after a while, you just build it. Beforehand, by the way, it becomes a very natural thing. You just start knowing your value. It just comes automatically after a while. But it comes through experience is a quick answer now. I gave you the long organic route, but the quick answer is it comes through experience.
Yes, I actually prefer the organic route because this and we are all about that. Now, as we come to the close of the show, if you have questions, please remember to ask.
Sorry, just repeat that. I think I lost you there for a second. Could you just repeat that again?
I'm telling guys to ask their questions as we are about to close the show. Now, Nisi has one question. She's asking, what happens when the creative is not open to being on the table? Speaking from the sponsor brand perspective, the sponsor can see the value, but the creative does not. How then do you get the balance?
It comes from within, really. And more times than not, it's really down to the creative to understand their value. A sponsor can't force you or help you find your own value. They can't, really. It's not even in their job to do that. And the problem is this: if the sponsor knows your value and you don't know your own value, you'll get taken advantage of. It's a business, guys. Don't think as a creative you have a special place in heaven. No. You'll be treated the same like any other biashara. Okay? When you go to the market, what do? You haggle, don't you? You haggle over those maembes. You haggle over that, that sukuma wiki. Okay, if you're haggling over sukuma wiki, shame on you. But you know what I mean. You haggle in a market. In the same way, in any business, a businessman wants to get the best value for their business. So I will want the lowest price from you, for sure. So me, I'll tell you it's 10K. Me, I've only got 10K. And if you don't argue, you've agreed to it. Shauri yako, even if you go later and say, Maze, you hear all these artists, Maze, who promoter, Maze, nini. And I'm wondering, but you signed the contract. Did you ask for more and they refused? And here's the very important thing I want to end with. Somebody asked me this question, and I've been asked this question actually over and over again. How do you get your value? And maybe that's a question that needs to be asked. How do you get your value when negotiating with a promoter, whether it's a sponsor, whether it's whatever? Because if you know you're worth 30,000 and they're insisting on 10,000, do you take the gig or do you refuse the gig? Me, I'll give you an answer based on my experience. And I don't recommend it for everyone. Yeah. But here's what I learned. I started doing the 10K gigs when I knew I was worth more. But I did them intentionally. Okay? I'm just giving 10K as an example. But I started doing the lesser paid gigs to build so sometimes you have to do gigs that will build your brand better because they're more strategic. They might not pay you. You might not get paid as much in money, but you get paid in opportunity. And when that happens, what you do, you negotiate opportunity. When the pay is not enough, negotiate opportunity. Back to what I was saying earlier. Say, look, okay, fine. So you're paying me this amount, but are there options for interviews with maybe entertainment press? Is there a way you can use your muscle to get me, A, B, C, D, E? Okay. Can I get free tickets for 2 of my friends? Also, that kind of thing. So you bring your photographer there to come and take photos and your girlfriend or boyfriend, whatever. So what I'm saying is you can always negotiate other value other than money. But so that's one aspect. But the other side of things, and this is what I've done a lot, is refused gigs that I feel don't value me. In fact, actually, just yesterday I had such a discussion with a certain client And to be honest, for creatives, people will take advantage of Corona because they know you're desperate. Let's face it, the creative sector is desperate for business right now. So whereas maybe you used to take 50K, right now, even if you had 20K, you'll jump. Be very careful. I get you have to pay bills. I get it. I don't judge you. But be very careful that doesn't become the standard. So this is what I do. If I have to take a gig that's less than I know is normal, I tell them, listen, my charge is usually 50K. But for you, I'll give you a special discount. And what you do when you send them an invoice, include that discount. So what I do is this. I put my, let's say 50K. Then I'll say special corporate discount, 30K. So that they remember, they don't forget, they don't think that 20K was they understand that you know your value, but you're giving them a special rate. So that if somebody else asks them, hey, how much did you get that guy for? Oh, he usually charges 50K by day, but he gave us a special rate. Do you get that?
Yeah.
I hope you've really got, that's one of the tricks you'll have to find out later in life. So learn it now. Okay.
Yeah. Thank you
but also turn down gigs that you feel are not right. Trust me, you will lose a bit of money, but eventually the people who value you properly will come. And then eventually you'll get to start doing the gigs that value you. Trust me.
Super.
Any other questions?
The interview is getting sweeter. Yeah,
I'm happy to take. I'm happy. I have a bit of time, so I'm happy to take a couple more questions. I'm very happy to do so if you have time.
Sawa. Before we go to Mushira's question, I have one question.
Sure.
We just talked about Corona. I do know several friends who are suffering right now in terms of lack of business. Now, as a creative, how can you find this opportunity? They feel like it's not about your money, but just something, especially during this time.
Sorry, just repeat the last part of that question. I kind of didn't hear it too well.
Especially during this Corona time. Because times are hard. How do you look at it? Where do you go? How do you start?
Is the question, how do you survive this period as a creative when opportunities are not so much there? Is that the question?
That is the question, as well as where do you find it?
So one of the listen, the truth of the matter is there's no easy answer, guys. Corona has been tough on all of us, including myself. I lost a lot of business, both in my training, in my DJing, in my MCing, in my, what else did I say? Like everything, literally, it hit a wall. So I was as shocked as everyone else. I mean, this thing caught us unaware. We never imagined when March was starting, such a thing would ever happen. But I survived it somehow. How? I innovated. At the time, many DJs were doing gigs on Facebook, still are, on Instagram, etc. And then, which doesn't quite work because, of course, there's a lot of issues around intellectual property, and a lot of them were taken down. Some were blocked off Facebook or Instagram, and a whole lot of struggle. So they were struggling, even artists as well. They were struggling to both find an audience online, but to also monetize it. I took a different route. I started doing gigs on Zoom. And when you talk about monetizing a brand, I actually started monetizing. For the first time, I realized I started really monetizing my brand. What do I mean by that? I realized, okay, I have a brand and I have some what they call brand assets. What do I mean by that? I have people who really believe in what I do. So I reached out to those people specifically. I weeded them out and reached out to those people who really believed in me, who believed in my journey, and said, look, I want to start this thing. Would you support me? And they were like, you started, we'll do it. And every week for the last 15 weeks, I've been doing something called Saturday Night In. In fact, I only stopped it when our dear president opened the bars. So I just said, let me just take a break, turn it into a monthly event. But for 15 weeks consistently, I did a gig that people were paying money for online, on Zoom, consistently. So how did I achieve that? By just innovating, by not sitting and crying over spilt milk and thinking the end of the world has come. You have to innovate. You have to think out of the box, because it's not been easy. People have tried different things. I mean, some people have have looked for sponsors and have done online gigs. Some artists, for example, successfully. Others, I know even some fashion designers who've been doing fashion shows inside their homes, inside their own homes. They're doing fashion shows online and actually making money out of it. So I think the online space has presented a new way of monetizing. And now that the spaces are opening up, I think online will never be gone forever, this whole monetizing online. So I think you have to find a balance between the two. If you ask me, as creatives, find a balance between the two, between doing live gigs now, which are slowly coming up. They're still not at the level, obviously, they were at before Corona, but they're climbing now. Pole pole. Maybe by December, we'll be at 60% of where we were before. So how do you feel the other 40%? I think start looking for online ways to make money, but start with the people who believe in you. That's what I believe, and build it from there. I saw another question. Yeah, take it from there. I saw a question about what happens when your friend asks you to do a gig. How do you deal with them? So there are two ways to deal with that. I have very quick answers for that one. One, there's something called the power of no. Learn that word, not just for your friends, not just for your family, but for even gigs that you don't want to do. If you really feel it's a gig that, from your brand point of view, will hurt you, just say no. Don't lie that, oh, you have a funeral to attend of an uncle who never existed. No. Just say no. It is that simple, but do it in a nice way. Just say, actually, no, I don't think this might quite work for my Nini, my brand or whatever, but I can suggest somebody for you, or, A, B, C, D, E, okay? Because it's true, especially if you're very famous, especially in your community, if you're very famous, then, it's like a good friend, Aki. It's that auntie who even raised you, and now they're asking you for that thing, and you're like, no, it won't, haingi. Just say, unfortunately, right now, I'm unable to. I would have really liked to, but I really can't. And be ready to lose some friends. If you're not ready to lose some friends, you will suffer. Okay? Yeah. So that's one alternative. The second alternative, especially if you're a band, if it's not just you alone, but even with yourself, just say, look, I'd love to do so, but I'd have to charge a family price, but I have to charge, because then you have to tell them, because it is a business. Because if you are a lawyer, or if you are a real estate developer, there's no way they're going to come and ask you for house for free, will they? There's no way they're going to come and ask you for legal work for free, is there? No. So why are they treating creatives like different people? It's a business. So let them know, this is a biashara. I won't charge you my normal 50K, but I'll have to charge you like 25K, like a family discount, Aki, uni support. If they're not prepared to do that, imagine, be prepared to lose some family members. Me, that's the way I look at it. If your family are not going to support you, and they're not real family.
Be prepared to lose.
I'm harsh, by the way. I'm very harsh.
Sometimes we need the hard truth to lose creativity.
Absolutely.
Yeah, we'll take our final question from Shira.
Okay.
What does it take to run a creative campus in terms of outside costs and back sales prices? Just the talent that you're managing as well.
Well, sign up to my next creative enterprise training, and you'll find that out, because we cannot do that in 2 seconds. But the point is this. There are certain, if you're making money in Kenya of any kind, generally, just generalizing, you actually have to pay taxes. There's some instances where if you're below a certain threshold, you don't have to pay tax. But on average, most of you earn more than 10, 12,000 a month, in which case you're actually subject to tax. It's just that sometimes we feel that we are bunched together with the beggars on the street as creatives, and really we shouldn't be paying tax. But the truth is, you actually have a tax liability. You have an obligation to pay tax, because then if you're not paying tax, then you cannot complain about roads, and you cannot even complain about corruption, because they're not even stealing your money. They're stealing somebody else's money, not yours, because you haven't contributed to it. That's the way I look at it. You have a responsibility to pay for the development of your own country. That's the bottom line. How they deal with it or what they're doing is another question. That's a different debate. Licenses, there are certain licenses, depending on what you're doing, that you're meant to have from your local authority, from your county, and some from a national level. And if you have any specific question about that, if there's something you're doubting, please get through Creative Chill, and they can direct that question to me, and I'll be happy to answer it. But yes, there's sometimes you do need certain licenses to do certain things. Yes.
Now, as we come to the close, what is the single biggest lesson you learned in these 3 decades that you've been in the creative?
Sorry, run that by me again. I missed that, Eddie.
What is the single biggest lesson you've learned in the creative enterprise?
Wow, imagine I've lost that question completely. I only had the first part of it. What's the biggest lesson I've learned? And then I couldn't hear the rest of it. So I want to make sure I answer it correctly.
The biggest lesson you've learned in the creative enterprise economy, or in the creative sector.
What is the biggest lesson I've learned in my experience in the creative sector? Is that the question?
Yes,
Have I got that correct?
Yes, that is yes, it is.
The biggest lesson I've learned is that we never stop learning. I am still learning. I am still in the school of life. I tell you, I am an information maniac. I love information. And actually, why I enjoy training creatives is because I actually learn more than I share with them. It's an exchange. It's never a lesson teaching at I know everything I'm teaching you. No, I actually learn as much as I give. And so for me, the greatest lesson I've learned is don't stop learning. Do not stop learning. Do not stop being curious. Do not stop improving yourself. There is no limit to that. Even when you're 90 years old, keep on learning, keep on learning, keep on learning. And that's why mentors come in, because mentors help push you a little further than you know your limits are. So that's actually probably one of the big lessons I've learned.
Super. I don't think it could be more delightful than this. I'm sure you've heard that pun so many times.
I could, if I was being paid for that pun, I think I'd be a millionaire by now.
Probably. So, thank you guys for tuning in. But before I let DJ-Lite go, I'm sure he has a tune that best describes him, and I'm sure it's a jazz tune as well. I only know one jazz song. Actually, I don't know any jazz song.
Actually, my music tastes are more varied than probably any DJ in Kenya. I think I'm one of the most craziest. My influences are very wide. I have to warn you. From EDM to reggae to zilizopendwa to R&B to hip hop. So it's hard to pin it on. People know me as a soul DJ. They think I only play for people who have gray hair. That's not true. I tend to do that a lot more because it's my generation, yes. But I also play, the other day I played for my niece's 18th party. She was so happy. They couldn't believe that her uncle could DJ like that, and they enjoyed it, because as a DJ, you have to be into the music, and be current as well, if you play to a wider audience. So which is a song that best describes me? Oh my goodness gracious me. That is probably one of the hardest questions I've actually ever been asked. It's like asking an artist, which was your favorite painting? What best describes me? Okay, let me not say the specific song, but the genre or the type of, I think a house song, probably best, a dance song best describes me, because I'm quite energetic. I love dancing. Nowadays more in my shower and in my sitting room alone, but I love dancing. I love energy. I love color and house music for me. And that's how I started as a DJ. I started as a house DJ in fact, we are the ones who, I can say comfortably, I was one of the first house DJs in Europe. We started house music in Europe. And I was the first DJ to DJ in a place called Ibiza. The first African DJ, to DJ in a place called Ibiza, which is a big house DJ, house music scene. So house music, I think, defines my kind of vibe, it's always ringing in my head somehow. Yep.
So guys, DJ-Lite is in the house, another fan. So as you've heard, he's best described by house music. Now, DJ-Lite, before we let you go, where can people find you? Where can young creatives, look for you, and what should they, when they want to talk to you, what are the parameters that they need to keep in mind before they just engage with you?
So here's the deal. I'm very open to responding. I respond daily to creatives, and if I don't respond immediately, just give me a day or so, and I'll usually respond. And if I can't respond immediately, I'll normally say, let me respond to this tomorrow or next week or tomorrow or day after, whatever. But you can find me on IG at David Muriithi. You can find me on Twitter and DM me on Twitter. Facebook, I tend to leave to my more personal friends. So please don't start messaging me on Facebook. I mean, I don't mind you following me on Facebook. Follow me on Facebook, but don't as a follower, not as a, don't add as friend. I wouldn't add you as friend on Facebook if I don't know you. If I've not known you for more than 10 years, trust me. But IG, you can DM me. I might not follow you back because I'm actually at my limit, more or less. I can't even follow people back. But I'm most flexible on Twitter, usually, in terms of responding. And on IG, actually. On IG, you can DM me. I'm not a snob. I'm very approachable. But listen, approach me with a very specific issue. Don't give me general issues of how can I be a successful musician. That is not a question. That is a statement of life. Okay? This is just like, be very specific. Tell me you're struggling with ABC. How can I? And if I can't help you, I'll try and suggest somebody who can. So I'm very happy to receive, and just say, look, I saw you on this chat on Creative Chill, and I liked what you said. You have to say, you liked what you had. Eh? You have to say that, by the way. You have to rub my ego. These are tricks of networking I'm giving you. That really helps get, it helps get attention. But you see what it does, on a serious note, it helps me realize where our connection was, and it gives me a higher chance of responding to you because you've created that connection I was talking about earlier. You get it?
Yes.
Yeah.
Wow. I don't want to let David go, but I have to let him go because this guy, is the perfect father, depending on what age you are. Like, as you've heard from him, insights upon insights. I could not be able to cover every question that I had because of time constraints. But
listen, I'm happy to come back sometime again if you need me back. If people feel, and let people, message us and see if I'm happy to come back and talk about maybe a certain aspect like pricing. How do you price your products or marketing? I'm happy to come back and do that in a month's time or so. If you'll invite me back, and if people want to hear more of my rambling on, I'm happy to do that for the creative sector anytime.
Super. Let me put the plans in motion. I'll put the plans in motion and then we'll get this show right. Thank you so much, guys, for tuning in to Zero Chills TV and Creative Cliche. To our guest, David Muriithi, aka DJ-Lite, the guy who loves house music and he can dance better than me, which is a shame because I have such a nice body. But anyway, thank you guys for tuning in. We'll see you again next Friday. Churus, remember to reply the email that I sent you so that we see what you want to do with David next time. Bye-bye.
A real honor. Thank you, guys. Peace out.
David, don't leave.
Thank you to